Hello, everyone. Welcome to a awesome panel today on the creator economy of NFTs. So let's start off with some introductions, probably. Um, I'm Jeff, the CEO founder of Eternal, and let's just go down. Maybe Richard, you can go next.
Hi, I'm Richard Poglington, lead game designer here at Dapper Labs.
Mickey.
Hi there, I'm Mickey. I'm head of content at The Fabricant, which is a digital fashion house based in Amsterdam.
Cool. Lastly, Ben.
I'm a senior concept designer and art director in the game and film industry and have been creating my own NFT projects, Evolution and the upcoming Huxley.
Awesome. Um, so we're here to talk about creator economy. But I think the word here, creator, for each of us is means such different things. So I'd like to kind of understand like what creator means to each of you before we even get to any other questions. So I'll start here. Look, for us, creators right now are mainly just live streamers and gamers, people that create content on Twitch, that make these awesome highlights, and they have millions of fans that watch them and follow them around. And we're just trying to help them monetize in additional ways and engage with the fans better through the use of NFTs. So that's what creators are to us. And maybe let's go back around the other way. Ben, what's a creator to you?
To me, it's like my background. To me, it's like building universes and creating things that have never existed before, and that will hopefully captivate and thrill audiences with new universes and worlds that they haven't seen before.
Well, yeah, let's go back around the other way, Mickey.
Yeah, I'm speaking from a Fabricant perspective. As I mentioned, we're a decentralized digital fashion house. And I guess everything that we do as a digital fashion house stands in opposition to the existing kind of notions of the physical fashion industry. So a creator for us is anybody, and anybody can be a creator. Historically, the physical fashion world had this kind of, I don't know, gate-kept idea of who gets to make fashion and who gets to be a creator, who gets to make a brand. What we're saying is we're going to democratize fashion creation so anybody can become a digital fashion creator and work with us to co-create the wardrobe of the metaverse. So it's a big picture, but it's for us, it means anybody who has any desire to create digital fashion.
Awesome. That's really inspiring, and hope someday I can be a fashion designer as well. And I can. You're right. I'll try it out. And Richard?
Hi, yeah. So in terms of what I've done in terms of creation over the decades, mostly was what we call content inside games and a little bit of systems. And I've always worked in an area where we had permeability between core and supplemental work. So Dungeons and Dragons was my homeland for several decades. And now I really love the opportunities we have with the blockchain gaming in that it continues to elaborate upon what I've always appreciated about the role-playing game industry as a place where people can create versus the traditional games industry. And that is that, everyone who's playing the game is participating in the creation of the experience for all of us. And I see, fast, reliable, inexpensive blockchains really as leveraging that so that more of us can become creators and really co-create the shared worlds we imagine and play in.
Cool. So you're also saying everyone can be a creator in your world as well, right?
Awesome. It's true. Yeah, it is pretty because like Dungeons and Dragons, like playing with friends, like yeah, it's like creating with your imagination and not a lot of the time with like creating actual art or anything, but the experience you create together is definitely what keeps me coming back to those experiences with my friends.
Yeah, I actually have a game like every other Friday for D&D as well, and it's always, all these crazy stuff happen. And what'll be super cool is if there's a way to essentially um, take that experience of that session and somehow make an NFT from that, such that we can look back and remember all the cool experiences that happened and everyone that's involved. Let's get to a pretty interesting question here. Is like, In your opinion, how did the first creators start to essentially get into NFTs and crypto from your perspective? No. Here, let's start off with Mickey, because I feel like we deal with such different audiences each. I'd love to hear from you first, Mickey.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and our story is actually really woven into Dapper's story as well. So the Fabricant was the first ever. We dropped the first ever digital fashion NFT in 2019, but it's really recent history. But in terms of the trajectory of digital fashion, it feels like a lifetime ago. So Dapper approached us and talked about creating, our garments are called Digicouture, by the way. They approached us with this idea that we could create a one-off garment for the ETH conference in New York, and then collaborated with us to make it happen. So we dropped this then to a world, not only unready for digital fashion, but certainly ready for the idea of a digital fashion NFT that could be collected and traded and worn in the non-physical environment. The piece kind of caused worldwide headlines because obviously the concept of non-physical fashion wasn't being talked about at a global scale. It was a pretty confronting idea, I have to say, for everybody to take on board. But our story kind of began there, and we continued to work with Dapper, and obviously we're iterating our collaboration platform here on Flow. But yeah, it was really interesting to be part of this new vertical. Obviously, we're always used to the idea of NFTs being, I guess, a crypto art form, and we just presented this new idea of what a visual NFT could be. But for us, a very strong component has to be utility. Our garments don't exist just to be looked at, even though they're very beautiful. We want them to be worn within the metaverse. So the studio that we've created now, the co-creation studio, is the next part of that plan, to making sure that everybody can trade our garments, collect our garments, but also wear them in the metaverse.
I'd love to kind of dig into that a bit more. When you say wear in the metaverse, do you only mean like actual virtual characters wearing them, or also like real people being able to wear them, but posted it in the metaverse of sorts?
Yeah, there's sort of different variations on utility right now. So we have, you could be digitally dressed, which is, I guess, the sort of entry level way of, like, most people could probably do this, which means that you can go to a digital fashion retailer, which sell our garments amongst other designers. You upload an image of yourself, your chosen photograph in your chosen pose, and our garments will be fitted to you using 3D software and fitted to that image. And then you receive, as a consumer, an image that you can share across social media for kudos and all that kind of stuff. So that's out there. That's been happening already for a little while. And then there's the AR filter, which is another way that you can interact and wear our garments. That iteration is just getting to where we'd like it to be, because obviously we're all familiar with Snapchat, where you maybe in lockdown, we all wore kind of whatever, pirates hats. I don't know what we're wearing. But the tracking for our garments, we'd like it to be a little bit more flawless, because obviously there's the shift that happens. We want you to be able to see our garments at a click and be able to do a 360, and it behaves and falls exactly as we've designed it, because the software that we use mimics perfectly the behavior of the chosen fabric. It's getting there. We've dropped a few filters of various collections that we've done, lots of headpieces. Last month, we dropped this amazing gown that appeared at the Met Gala. Not the Met Gala, by the way, the Met Gala, which was the digital fashion iteration of this world, which was so cool. Awesome. We really loved that garment. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the avatar kind of iteration, where our garments will exist in a virtual space, and you'll be able to go to a gig in the metaverse, and your avatar will be able to wear our garments. And quite clearly, gaming is another obvious place where you'd wear. So there's different utilities right now that we're working with.
Perfect. That's a great transition. So, now speaking of gaming, Richard, how did you and the people around you get into NFTs and crypto?
Well, I was working at Hasbro at the time when I got really interested in CryptoKitties. I've been aware of the Bitcoin and that for a little while. And interesting enough, I love Hasbro. I loved having my home there, but they weren't quite ready. And so moving to CryptoKitties was very exciting for me. it's kind of the ground floor of NFTs, CryptoPunks, CryptoKitties. In terms of creators, I would like to specifically call it Guile, in that the man who designed the look and feel of the CryptoKitties and designed the way they all fit together, it was amazing. And so it was a feat of both technical art and traditional art simultaneously to bring those cats alive. And then to watch as the ecosystem of CryptoKitties exploded and the value of them went crazy was really interesting. And I think there's a lot of things that we can attribute the rise of CryptoKitties to. But one essential piece of that was their inherent beauty and their inherent symmetry and just how lovely they were to look at. And the choice that Max Flavell made to make them cats. But the implementation by Guile as the CryptoKitties with their eyes and so on, really neat to think about. As we were making the NFTs, they were composites. And so as more artists joined the team and CryptoKitties became a little bit more diverse in some ways, it's very interesting to see us connecting each person's individual artistic flair and what they wanted to draw and what they could draw to tie to these beautiful digital lifelike like cats. But it all started with Guile getting the eyes and the body shape and all those component pieces in order to make basically composite art so that each CryptoKitty looked pretty good and that they could all be made out of all these tiny little pieces. So he was never drawing a whole CryptoKitty. He was always just drawing tiny little pieces of CryptoKitties and seaming them together through the algorithms that Dieter Shirley and the others put together.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not the first person that got into the space because of CryptoKitties. It's absolutely huge hit. I was there at the hackathon as well when they essentially came up with that, and everyone in the hackathon was going crazy collecting, trading that. But Ben, you kind of come from a very, I guess, different background, having done a lot of gaming and a lot of art already. And I feel like the art industry is very divided among NFTs, people that are for it and are against it. So how did you kind of decide to come to the space and figure out this was the right move for you?
Sure. Well, to me, most of my career has been as a digital artist has been like butting my head against the ceiling of like, I have to work for other people because there's no way to monetize my digital creations. And I am basically a service provider using my skills to create images for someone, what someone else needs. Like I need this cool badass robot for the movie and give me a million ideas until I find the one I want. And we're basically just like throwing our skill and our time and our art away. And because there wasn't really any other option, right? It was just everyone viewed digital creations as kind of worthless. And that was the reality I lived in most of my career. So when NFTs happened and I saw a few friends, I saw people posting about it and another friend, Victor Mascara, diving in early. And once I read exactly what it was, I'm like, this solves every digital artist problem I've had my whole career, and all of us have had our whole career. And I was just like, this is a revolution. This is a revelation. This is the future. I need to be part of this. And to me, it's just, I just saw it for what it was. Maybe it'll take other people a little longer to understand or realize or see what that is. But to me, this is just a huge moment in art history for digital artists. And I would rather be a part of this amazing thing instead of ignoring it. But for what NFTs are, I didn't know exactly, like I knew about it, but I didn't know exactly what it was until probably late last year. Like I think we all heard about CryptoKitties, or I was into crypto in like 2016, 2017. And I remember hearing these cartoon cats broke the Ethereum network. And I remember that thing. I didn't know what an NFT was or what that was, but I remember that CryptoKitties moment. It was just so popular that Ethereum like broke that day or something. But now I see that it was like the early NFTs happening, and it's cool to kind of connect the dots.
I totally agree. For myself, or actually for the creators we work with, a lot of gamers, it's very, I think it'll be similar to a lot of how you guys experienced it. I think price actually does help the initial onboarding, right? A lot of people seeing the numbers going up and then making more money helps essentially get a lot of the initial creators on board, get them interested, at least take a foot into the door, starting to understand what it does and what it is. And that's how we got our first few Twitch creators onboarded. right? What's interesting is after the initial like 2 or 3 months, actually after a sort of month of them getting a passive paycheck for essentially just engaging with their fans, they realize this is very powerful. You could do a lot more with this. You're starting to engage with their actual fans, and they start adding various utilities, so the creators themselves start getting more involved. In our case, like we integrate with their Twitch stream, with their Discord, and with various games as well. At that point, creator onboarding becomes very easy because it's our creators telling other creators to hop on this because it's amazing, right? Much like Ben, what you said with regards to Deep and all the other guys, like, hey, this is life changing. This is a new way to monetize. This is how it should be monetized. So come on board and join. Essentially, how things should be. But along with NFTs and all the stuff we're building on creators, I think community is a huge make or break aspect of this, right? It really depends on community to see whether or not there's actually a lot of times the utility is the community, and they also give value to the NFTs and crypto and help empower the creators to make them feel like, hey, this is worth my time. I am doing something with this. So, Richard, I'd love to kind of go over like how has the community really impacted the creator economy side of your business?
Well, the community is everything. People ask me all the time, why do these things have any value? I say it's very simple. They have value because we value them. And they're like, oh, that's just cyber. And then, then I come back. I mean, I am a former anthropology professor as well as a game designer. And I say, well, have you learned the story of Sumeria? And then they often haven't. And, from the beginning, writing, symbolism, and value were all tied together. I mean, someone was the first person who handed over several sheep and didn't get any vials of oil in return. What they got was a small piece of clay that had the image of some vials of oil crafted into it, and then a larger ball of clay strapped around it for security purposes, then it was baked. Someone took that leap of faith and they handed over sheep for a ball of clay. Now, they did well with that decision, and that's where we get currency from. And so this idea that, value is somehow out there in some sort of real thing that you're going to get and hold, that is mythology. That is not true. Very much how language is how we use it. So you can say someone's using the language inappropriately, but if they're communicating, using language to communicate, I mean, are they wrong? No, language is how we communicate. And so if people are communicating using those sounds, that's language. And the same thing with value. When we generate NFTs, when we generate CryptoKitties, when we trade these things, when we give these things to each other, they have value because we value them. And who values them? The community. And so that is where the development of Flow after Ethereum was so important, because the Ethereum network has some very significant structural issues in how it can scale. And so when Deep thought this through at great depth, we had to build Flow or something like Flow to allow the community to grow. Okay. And just as in ancient Sumeria, thousands of years ago, the community of people who would agree to accept balls of clay that contain smaller pieces of clay with engravings on them instead of receiving oil or sheep, we now are beginning to see the community rapidly grow of people who are like, yeah, I value this, you value this, let's trade in this. And so to be very clear, as the people who are interested in NFTs communicate and promulgate the ideas of how this works and what they do to others, they themselves are working to increase the value of the things they hold. And this is in their self-interest. It is a virtuous cycle. Talking about NFTs, getting people to be part of the community, helping them understand, making your friends understand, and proliferating the knowledge that this is as real as we want it to be, is the essential activity of growing the NFT economy. And right now, with the notable exception of Axie Infinity, a huge portion of that economy are just people who hold NFTs that are Top Shots. And that is rapidly changing right now. I've been looking at the data this week, and that is going to change rapidly in the future. And the community of people who believe in, accept, and trade in and hold and gift all kinds of NFTs is about to grow in a way that it's very difficult to predict. But we kind of know a little bit about the scale. And that's why this, for anybody who wants to get involved, this is a very good time, because we are growing the community. And as you join us, the community grows and we build that virtuous cycle.
Amazing. Now, Ben, I kind of want to change that question up a bit for you because, you know, you kind of come with the initial reputation with yourself. Well, I would kind of love to understand, how did you essentially start your community? How did you get the ball rolling? How did you get people in there and engaged?
I think a lot of it was just, I have a lot of people who just like my work and follow my work, or have collected earlier projects like Evolution. And I mean, it all starts from zero. Like, I want to learn how to draw. You got to pick up a pencil and draw, and it's going to be tough. And you got to keep trying and trying. You get better. And same thing for community. Like, you start and it's just a handful of people, and you just keep growing and helping and engaging and making fun activities and around each project. And for my new project, Huxley, I'm working with a bigger team, and that's helped a lot. Evolution, I try to do everything myself, and it's just very overwhelming doing everything on your own. But yeah, for the new stuff, it's been really fun to find a lot of cool things to keep people engaged in activities and challenges. And a lot of it ties into like release strategies and whitelists and how the rollout happens, and like rewarding old collectors. So everyone on Evolution gets something cool for the new project. And then when something for Evolution happens, I want to reward all the people for this project, and finding cool ways to like constantly be letting people know I'm always thinking about them and taking care of them. And if they support me early, they're going to get cool stuff, and finding all these cool ways to keep people excited and having fun. And yeah, it's always a learning process. This is all very new to me, so I'm learning and adapting every day, every week. But that's part of what we got to do.
Yeah, and you know, Ben, you kind of alluded to keeping the community engaged, Mickey. How do you do that? Because you guys have been around. You know, the brand has been around for a long time. And how do you keep people excited and hyped and essentially get them going after all the time still?
I guess it's kind of continuing to do, just being true to our belief system. So when we first engaged our community, as I've said, we kind of try not to behave like a physical fashion house. So our community, our creative peers, we never said, look, here we're a fashion house, and here's the definitive iteration of a garment, and it's your job as our community to just consume it. And there you go, that's what you do. Since day one, we gave away our patterns for free, which is an absolute no-no in the existing fashion world. The idea of transparency, it makes them break out in hives. And we just said, well, why not? Why not share our digital patterns? So we, initially, the people that followed us, were creators like Ben, individual creators who were just really interested in what we were doing creatively, and sort of on board with this idea that we could create our digital selves. We just gave away our patterns, and we said, here you go, here's our version. Why don't you just come right back to us with your version of a garment? And it's just so gratifying to see our kind of creative community just feed right back and inspire us right back, this collaborative two-way iteration of what a collection can be, that we can co-create a fashion collection. Why not throw open the theme to the world and say, great, inspire us right back. So I guess that's always been our modus operandi. That's always what we've done. We're not above our community. We're part of our community. They're us and we are them. We're creative technologists. We all come from creative backgrounds. We've all been individual creators. We know how it feels. Those difficulties that Ben was talking about, where you're giving away all your creative energy and you realize that you're making a fortune for somebody else, and you just think, well, why is it that way? We can do things so differently in our world. So that's the position that we've always operated from. We've had some amazing garments created for us, not for us, with us, by our audience. And I guess the studio is us trying to kind of run with that idea and really extrapolate it further. So it's like, okay, right now, to be a digital fashion creator, you have to have some design knowledge. You have to know the Clo3D software or the other kind of programs that we use to create garments. How about we take away all those pain points and make it possible for anybody without any software knowledge to become a digital fashion designer. Where do things go? So that's where we're trying to take our audience. We're just trying to take this idea of democracy beyond our creative audience and out to the world, and just seeing where things go, right? It's such an early moment in our history with this. So we're just trying to see where it goes, make things possible, and just stay true to our values of being transparent and open and collaborative, for all of our future collections in the studio. And all of those early artists that work with us, they're invited to drop garments in the studio and co-create collections with us and monetize their efforts. We're going to be the platform that kind of gives them the visibility. And the equitability is going to be equally shared. So we take a small percentage, and then the creators, everybody that's involved in the creation of a garment, from maybe the brand, the person that created the initial garment, whoever creates the digital fabric, and then the person that customizes it as a user, they all get an equal split. So I think, as Richard was saying, this virtuous cycle of creativity where everybody benefits, that allows us to create this new economy, is kind of where we're hoping things are going to go. We're certainly trying to make it happen anyway.
Yes, for sure. We all are. And so I'd love to kind of understand, and we're really talking about what we all have done and how we have really like brought people into the community. And it's kind of brainstorm and looking to the future a bit about how do we think things will evolve, right? Do we think that creators essentially bring the communities, people into the space of NFTs and crypto and blockchain, or do you believe more that the communities will start actually bringing the creators into the space, saying like, hey, XYZ, I love your art, you should definitely make it through a NFT such that I can support you directly? Or is it the other way around? And I'll kind of start off on this one. With us, we're definitely starting to see the latter, with the community starting to pull in the creators, because on Twitch there's a lot of there's a lot of overlap with the audiences in several different Twitch channels, right? So a fan of one creator might go to another creator's channel and say, hey, I know my boy that streams Rust, he's done really cool things with his NFTs that allows me to essentially do stuff in the Discord and on Twitch streams. How can I do the same for your Twitch stream? And once a creator sees that, they realize, oh, what is this he's talking about? This name I have trust a lot is already doing this, so let me look into this. And that way, a lot of like the Twitch community is now bringing a lot of Twitch creators onto our platform and essentially referring them over to us. But that's because Twitch is a very tight-knit community with a lot of crossover in audience. I would love to understand how that looks for maybe Ben. Like, how does that look in our space? Do you see a lot of communities bring artists in, or is this still the other way around right now?
I think it's a bit of both. Yeah, there's still that kind of push and pull. Some people are super against it, and others are diving in. And yeah, it's really a bit of both. Like, people who understand it just like go right into it, and other people are, communities trying to like either wear it skins or fashion or something that they would be perfect for, or their style is perfect for, or to make a collectible series or something. Yeah, it's a bit of both, I think, at the moment. But I think what Mickey was saying is really cool about community was like, when you do start doing this, it is kind of like a collaborative process. Like, so many things that happen on Evolution were a result of all the community was like, oh, we want this to happen, we want that to happen. What if it's like this and that, and it's stuff that I maybe never would have thought of. And a lot of these collectors have been in the space a lot longer than me and have some really cool ideas, and it's just like, yeah, let's do that, sure. Like, and they feel respected and like they're part of the process, which they are. And yeah, it's always keeping an eye on that and allowing that to come in, and being on those Discords and communities has been really cool. I think a lot of people are surprised that, I don't know if it's the same for you, Mickey, but a lot of people are surprised that I'm there talking with everyone. Like, I don't know if people are, the artist is usually like gone or something, but I'm there like every day, and they're just like, oh my God, is that really you? It's like, yeah, this is my project. Like, where else would I be?
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
good to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't realize like this is so direct that we actually care about our community. We're actually there just straight up talking to these guys, right, and our users. Um,
Another thing I wanted to bring up that Richard mentioned, like the kind of maybe it's hard for some people to wrap their head around what an NFT is and stuff. And I always keep going back to like just you can just ask people like, hey, do you play video games? And most people are just like, yeah, of course. Like, have you ever bought a skin in a video game? They're like, totally, every day, and they're like, well, now you know what that's an NFT, but it's just locked into that one game. But an NFT is you own it no matter what, and they're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I think we're all very familiar with this idea, but I think people just haven't connected some of those dots yet, and I think when they do, it's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah. I totally agree. And then the thing for me is like, even when I explain it to some people, they still won't say like, oh, they'll understand what it is, but they won't buy it. But what I realized, like, until you say a certain thing that they interest in, they're like, oh, actually, I'll buy that for sure. I just won't buy what you're saying, right? So what I've made a comparison to is actually like beer, right? I feel like there's a beer that everyone kind of likes, but they just really haven't found the one that tastes good to them. In many ways, that's NFTs, especially with gaming. Like I'll say, hey, we are doing highlights of this person that plays Call of Duty. Like, oh, I don't really care. And then I say, hey, we're doing highlights of the League of Legends World Tournament Finals from 2 years ago where this epic thing happened. Like, oh yeah, definitely buy that. $100, no problem. Right? I'm like, what the hell? You just said you don't care about this. So it's so like, it's so funny where essentially it's not so much the utility of NFTs itself, like what it is. It's more for us like emotional based. Like, do I find myself associated with that emotion and what happened there? And that's really what causes whether or not I like to buy.
Yeah, something they care about or something they're interested in. Like, yeah, it's like we're all very familiar, like through like gaming for most of our lives, we're all very familiar with buying and owning digital assets, but it's just been wrapped up in this video game that we don't really think about it like that. But like, say like Fortnite or some big game, and they're just like someone has the skin that was only out there for one day and they got it, and it's like, man, I really want that Marvel Venom 90s skin that there's only 10 of them. It's like, well, I'd pay good money for that thing. Like, I want to have the Venom skin, like, and there's only like 100 of them in the world. Like, I'll pay a lot for that to look cool in my game that we all play and hang out with. Like, it's something that we're all familiar with, but it's just connecting those dots in a bigger way or broader way, I think.
I actually think that's like, I'd love to get everyone's input on that as well. Is like, that's actually one really missing utility is like the showing off factor, right? I think Twitter, is kind of the place to do that right now, but it's very limited. Yeah. So you have this stagnant profile picture and stuff like the Fabricant, you can't really show it off properly. I'm sure Ben, like, your art does great on Twitter, people said as a profile picture. But Mickey, like, what do you think is missing? Like, what is ideal, either product or like human behavior you like to see to allow people to really show off their NFTs better?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. These environments don't quite exist. There's sort of, pages where you can show off your NFTs. But for us, of course, we want to see people wearing our garments and using our garments. And right now, for what we're trying to do, as I've said, this sort of idea of interoperability, our garment will appear in a different kind of iteration depending where you are. I would love to see a unified place. I mean, it's very difficult, right? Because we're all about being decentralized. So you don't suddenly want everybody to run to one kind of environment. I don't quite know what it looks like that right now, if I'm honest. We see our garments appear, as I said, on Instagram profiles, on marketplaces, within games and in different experiences. People just love to kind of talk about that, they bought garments of ours and just sort of, for the kudos factor, which is really cool. And that's always really nice to see. And I'd say the majority of that conversation right now takes place on Twitter. So yeah, I think we're really, all of us need this kind of space. But I guess right now, just the nature of the metaverse, or certainly the open metaverse, means there's probably going to be multiple iterations of this. I love seeing what people have bought. I love seeing that how they want to use them. I love just hearing people talk about the garments and what they're excited about doing with them. It's interesting right now that people are kind of holding the garments, and it's you know, they're not kind of willing to trade them yet, and they're thinking about trading them. And so I guess as things develop and as we move on, we'll see what these kind of show off moments are. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they develop. But I don't quite know where it's going to go, if I'm honest.
Yeah, Richard, what do you think? Because like, for all we know, you might be building the metaverse that everyone will be living in the future, right? So, like, what do you think needs to be built, or what kind of social nuance needs to happen?
I can neither confirm nor deny that we've been building. I just can't. I do feel that the threads we want to focus on are definitely decentralization and interoperability. So I don't think of the metaverse like I think of like the canonical Lord of the Rings universe. Like Lord of the Rings, there's a place and there's one Frodo and so on. I think the metaverse much more like the way our contemporary comic book publishers deal with their universe. So that the Spider-Verse, for example, is a very good example to try to explain what the metaverse means to people that are not familiar with that concept. And that, you know, the characters in the Spider-Verse are all Spider-Man, but they're not the same person. And that what is beautiful about how the Spider-Verse was put together is the effective interoperability of those different art styles. And that's where places like the work Ben does and the work Ricky's team does is really important, in that if we want to have the growing, flowing metaverse, we want to have a way to make these different pieces operate together. And so if we go back to Dungeons and Dragons, at the turn of the millennium, Dungeons and Dragons open sourced the core rules and allowed anybody who wanted to create some content and some systems that fundamentally interlocked with the core rules. This caused a huge explosion in publishing, and it was really, really effective at bringing attention back to Dungeons and Dragons away from the competing products. Unfortunately, it wasn't a long-term solution for them because they weren't fully committed to decentralization. But what I see is the opportunity here is when we are conceiving of our NFTs, when we give them properties, and some of those properties are visual and some of those properties are non-visual. So a CryptoKitty both has some nice blue eyes, but CryptoKitty, or some nice tiger stripe pattern on their fur, but they also have some genes inside them. And there are two separate tasks we need to do for the metaverse to really work. And one is to make sure that we can represent the creatures of Ben's imagination and the CryptoKitties and myself wearing a fantastic outfit all together. When I have gone and got my stuff from the Fabricant, we all want to go there together and interact visually. And that's a very complicated task. How that exactly works out, it's not solved yet. And we can all go and hang out in crypto voxels. And the best we can do, I paint myself half red. That's the level of sophistication we have there generally. But we want to have the properties of the NFTs that are not just visual also interoperate. And that's where it takes development of standardization, trial, error. I mean, we want people to take characters out of one experience and use them in another. That's an essential part of making the metaverse real. And so, as long as the characters in League of Legends remain just, owned by Riot and in there, that can't happen. But when we have game developers who are willing to, in some sense, relinquish some of their control for larger exposure, then it goes crazy. And then we can have these various pieces that come and are created by the various people working hard to create beautiful art and elegant systems in the games operate together. I still think we're a little ways away from that, but I always, when talking to people who are designing their games, I always want them to think, if they're coming to put them on the blockchain, how does the mod work? How does the interoperability, just the next piece, not the next and the next and the next, because I want everybody building NFTs for game pieces to understand that they have options. And one of the options is to build for the future so that the tokens they are selling and gifting and trading today are durable digital toys that can be used in the metaverse in the future in other experiences. So it's not about just optimizing for one gameplay experience or one visual effect, one visual environment. It's about thinking broadly about where this can go and how can it, at the end of the day, play well with others.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's super interesting. I bet Jonah had something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it still feels like we're like, it's almost like the beginning of the internet for the metaverse right now. So we're getting these little pieces of things, and it's not going to happen all at once, or there'll be these little things that grow and change and find ways to connect, and like, and also just technology getting to the point where we can support these things. Like if you think about, you know, a big MMO, there's definitely a cap on people that can be in one server before things just start breaking down and not being usable. And it's like, if we want this to be a true metaverse where everyone in the world is on the same experience, like I don't know if we even have the technology to do that yet, to support like 10 million people on a server or 500 million people on, like that's crazy. But it'll be figuring out ways, or clever ways, to make that work. And if you want to meet up with 20 of your friends and getting all in the same server, or 100 of your friends all in like a big concert, like instead of it being instances of the same thing on different servers, like everyone's in the same place and they're all sharing that experience together. It just takes time for technology, ideas, and all these things to catch up to our imaginations. But I think it's going to get there. It's just a matter of time. Yeah.
Can I speak to the server issue? Because we have thought through this. And one of the options we have is, rather than in a decentralized metaverse, rather than have your position and your outfit and her position all sent to a centralized server and sent back to others, if we allow the interactions in the metaverse to be peer-to-peer, then the position of people only matters to those that are close to you, those you're interacting with. And that's one of the tools we can use to vastly accelerate the solution to that problem.
That's very cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
You do run to, no, there was a another protocol that tried to do peer-to-peer internet before. You have a critical mass issue, right? You need to get a critical mass for a stable enough network. Otherwise, essentially, it's a very fragile network. And if you do hit critical mass, then no. It's weird. You always become contingent on a particular software or a particular entity that essentially maintains the protocol. But yeah, I think the peer-to-peer mesh network idea is definitely the future that people dream of. Before we have to go very soon, I would love like a quick 1 to 2 sentence for everyone. If you were to, if there is a creator who is maybe on edge or thinking about doing something in NFTs, what would you say to them? Maybe Richard, you can start us off.
Well, our goal at Dapper Labs is very straightforward. We're bringing the first billion people to the blockchain, and we want you to be one. And we feel that when you win with your project, we win. And so we are a little bit of a different blockchain than some of the other projects that started, and that there's more support, there's more leverage, there's more help here. So I say, come to Flow, tell us what you're doing. We will understand what you're doing. We will support what you're doing. We will move ahead, and we win when you win. And so please, we are willing to help you in some of these more interesting technical twisty turny problems. And we want all this to work out, and we realize this must be a collaborative effort.
For sure. Vicky?
I guess same, right? Work with us, come with us and co-create with us, and help us create the wardrobe of the metaverse together. There's room for everybody. We'll need billions of garments to dress the metaverse. There's opportunities for 2D and 3D artists, and we want to see what you've got. We're dying to work with you and just inspire us right back.
Cool. Ben?
I guess I would just say, like, this is a huge moment in art history for all digital artists, and for anyone on the fence, I think it's something to be a part of, and I think this is going to be a very incredible thing going forward.
Cool. And I'll kind of finish off here. I will say there's a lot of like black and white in the space right now, a lot of good, a lot of bad. But if you're on the fence, we're still super early. This is such a great time to get in and really push the border of technology and also social, consensus on what is good and how things should be positioned in the future. And with that, Thanks everyone for being on this panel. It's great talking to everyone, and
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for watching.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.